Welcome back to my workshop. This week doing something slightly different. I've got another cake to make, so it's going to be into the kitchen. It's a birthday cake for Liam. He wants a Pokemon cake. So my idea is to make a Pokemon ball or Pokeball that's open with a Pikachu inside. So let's see how that gets on. So, starting off, I had a bit of a clear up in the kitchen before I made a mess. My wife had already cooked the two cakes. One of them was obviously at the top, one at the bottom. So I had a quick measure up of those cakes and had to suss out how to make it so the cake was left open with no supporting struts in the middle. So, after my measurements, into the workshop and select some material. Decided to use some ply. Now none of this will be touching the food because it'll all be covered. So I started off with a small disc, the same size as the cake, and then I had to find a way of making it effectively float in midair. So I made an L-shaped bracket, again using some thin ply, made sure there was no sharp edges on it, and then you'll see in a second that I've screwed the disc to the underside of the L-shaped bracket, and then the L-shaped bracket was going to be screwed to the base. Now clearing off all the screws that I'd put through to hold it, sanded it all so it was all nice and smooth, and then started to cover it in silver aluminium foil. This is just so there was no cake is going to contact the wood at all. So all this is obviously non-edible stuff, so this is just the main structure of the cake. So once I've got my little disc covered in foil, I could then mount it to the base. So I've got the cake base, standard size cake base, just 2 or 3 screws in the bottom, and you can see there, and that's going to be my main support. Now I took it, this is the cake support cam, took it back into the kitchen and realised that the top cake was going to slide off. So back into the workshop, and I had to put some spikes in there. So basically what I've used is something plastic. I've actually used some raw plugs, drilled 4 holes, put raw plugs through, and then covered these also in silver foil, so again none of it was touching the cake. And back into the kitchen and then wash my hands. So now ready to do all the cakey bits. Inspecting the cakes first. Obviously got to get them flat on the top, so I used the original bowls they were cooked in to slice the tops. You can see the top cake there is actually red, so when it's cut into, it's going to be nice and red. So you could see there the top cake is just resting on those 4 pins to stop it sliding off. Now we're making a ganache here. My wife helped me. Just basically it's normal eating chocolate and double cream. Just basically heat up the cream and then pour it on the chocolate until it melts, and then leave it to chill for a while. Then obviously spreading the ganache on the structure of the cake. Now you've got to try and get this as smooth as possible because the icing is going on top of this. Obviously the more you work it, the chocolate ganache starts to firm up a little bit, and then it gives you time to work it here, and then it had to go back in the fridge for a little while to firm up a bit more. You can see there's a small spike through the back there. That was to hold the cake together because I'd chopped a bit out just so it can fit around the supporting structure. Then a final smooth off of the ganache, and then I can start rolling the icing. Started off with the top. This is the red top. Basically rolled it quite thin, a couple of millimeters thick, laid it over and then trimmed it off, and tried to get it as smooth as possible before I started doing the next layer of icing. Then I noticed it was slightly uneven, the base was slightly uneven, so I just put a little bit of icing here just to level up the base. Then rolled out my main white icing for the base and trimmed it off, fitted it into place. I cut it slightly too small, so at the back it's a bit of a mess. They didn't actually join up properly, but I had to try and address that as much as I could, but not very successfully. But yeah, smoothing it all down, make it as smooth as I can, because this is supposed to be a perfectly round ball, but trying to make a cake perfectly round is quite impossible. Next was the inside of the ball. I had these two circle cutters. I cut them out, but they were slightly too small, so I had to roll them out to make them bigger. But of course that made them not so round, so I spent ages again trying to round them off again. I had to angle the cake here because the inside top, obviously every time I tried to put the icing on, it was dropping down. So I stuck that with some edible glue, sugar flavour edible glue. Stuck that on. That stuck quite well to the ganache. Obviously underneath that icing is the ganache, and then there's the plate of the structure of the cake. So that bit is obviously not edible. Then onto the front of the ball. This is the part where the release button is. So just basically a couple of half circles of the same black icing, and then a small white circle just placed on the top. I actually used the same edible glue to stick this on, which worked quite well, and then I had to put a little piece of white icing behind it to stop it because it was drooping a little bit. Now on to the next stage, which was the base. So this is to cover the bottom of the cake. Now I tried to make it look a bit grassy, so I did it green, and then once I'd fitted it around the cake, you can see here trimming it around the cake as much as I could. I wanted to put some sort of texture on it, but once I'd laid the icing on, I then smoothed it out as much as I could, and then used the smoothing tool and the sharp edge of the base just to cut it off so it's all nice and round. Then just using this is a multi-hole piping nozzle, just to give it a little bit of texture, just basically pushing it into the icing just to give it that little grassy texture. So now had to make the lettering for the name. Use some sugar flare icing colouring again. For the yellow I use mango, and for the blue I started to use sky blue, but that wasn't quite dark enough, so then I used I think it's a royal blue. Just mixed up our icing, rolled out the yellow, which is going to be the centre of the words, and then just freehand cut out the letters. I was using my phone there just to refer to the style of the letters. Once the letters were cut out and the edges all tidied up a little bit, then I could roll out the backing for the letters, which was this blue. Had a bit of a rip situation going on there, but I recovered it, hopefully. Just basically stuck the letters on with some more edible glue, and then once all the letters are in place and all tidy, I then cut around the edge. That gave me my name, a little bit of edible glue on the base, and it just literally lifted the whole thing into place. And this is the final article. Yeah, it came out okay. It could have been a lot neater. If I'd spent a bit more time, I could have made the edges a bit more sharp. You can see the top there is quite shiny. I actually put on some confectioner's glaze, cover the whole cake in that to try and make it as shiny as possible. Obviously the smoother it is, you'd get more of a shine on it. So that's it. That's the final cake. This is obviously for Liam's birthday. Happy birthday, Liam. I've had to bring it out into the garage now, into the workshop, because dinner's being made, so I'll just pull it out of the way. Hopefully he'll like it. It's been good fun making this one. Tried a few techniques that I haven't used before. Yeah, if you like it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And next time we'll be back in the little workshop to do something in wood. Okay, see you later. Bye.